Okay, we're live. Mr. Al Stasek.
How's it going, Matt?
It's going great, man. No, we've been this has been something we've been looking forward to. I've been looking forward to. I want to have you on today. Obviously, you're one of our leaders here at EXP and the Honey Badger Nation with Mr. Jake Kinder, Michael Reese, and here we have Al Stasek. So you've got a team in Cleveland, Ohio. We're in the Pittsburgh area, obviously. So we're kind of neighbors and rivals.
We are neighbors.
You guys finally got one this year, right? The Brownies.
We've been waiting. And listen, patience is not one of my virtues. I can tell you right now.
Right.
That's not ever been a strong suit. But you don't really have an option when your rival is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they've been so good for so long, just basically owning us. So I think that we waited long enough, but it was fun to watch, though.
It's good. It's fun to watch. It's good to have the Browns be contenders again. You know, it's good. It's good for the NFL. Good for the.
I agree. I totally agree. And I love
the AFC, right?
Pittsburgh's great. I love visiting Pittsburgh. My great grandfather, my mom's side of the family's from there, and he worked the steel mills in Pittsburgh. And
nice.
So I would often frequent your area and come back with my great grandfather would, buy me all kinds of Steelers stuff. So I'd, come home, wear it to the bus stop, wonder why I was getting my butt thumped, by all these Browns fans.
That's funny.
So I've had a few Browns tassel caps and scarves in my time. I'm sorry, Steelers.
That's awesome. So I guess for those guys here around us and maybe that don't know, you were one of the original kind of guys to make that move to EXP, and you ended up bringing Jay over and those guys, and you were one of the original ones that had looked at it, and I guess that was almost 3 years ago, 4 years ago now.
Yeah, 3.5 years ago. I saw it about 4 years ago and ignored it like many of us probably did. And then, in the spring of 2017, I went ahead and said, you know what, let me take a look at this. And I did. And the first thing I did was I had to figure out okay, is it even in Ohio? And I came to find out that there was 8 agents. They just had started it in March of 17 in Ohio. Dave Best, who was a former Keller Williams broker owner, brought it to Ohio. Thankfully, I thank him every time I see him.
Yeah,
and I called him, and we had never met. We just heard of each other. And then I called him and I said, hey, what I just saw right here, I can't really unsee it. Is it in Ohio or what's going on? And he's like, yeah, man, it's real. I just brought it to Ohio. We're open. Let's go. And then I kind of began my 60-day journey of poking holes in it to see if this was BS. And because I had my own brokerage and I had just opened it 3 years prior from leaving Remax, which I loved Remax. And I certainly wasn't, I didn't really want to change. I just didn't feel like I had really a choice. If I was making, the right decision for my agents, it was a responsibility that I had to them to at least vet this out. And as it turns out, when I went and met with every one of my agents, they saw what I saw and they're like, yeah, this is really a no-brainer. Let's go. So it was.
So that was 3.5 years ago. And how many people in your organization right now?
It's just under 4,000. I think it's 3,800 or 3,900, something like that. But yeah, it's growing fast. We're having fun. What's really cool isn't so much the number of agents. It's the number of people like yourself that are leaders. We have probably the most amazing group of leaders that I've ever worked with. And it's, I was in a mastermind with Mike and Jay, and that started in 2012. And I was able to be around, 40, 45 really strong leaders. Most of them have already joined us, but now multiply that number by 4, 5x. That's how many and guys that have, like Chuck Fazio, that's built, organizations of over 850 agents in one office location. And so the amount of talent that we get to collaborate with and bounce ideas or help solve problems in our business. And everyone is just there isn't one person I've met that isn't willing to just share everything and be transparent and open up their playbook.
I know, right?
It just never existed in any of the other brokerages I ever worked at. So it's been a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, it's and I think I told this to Jay in the last couple I've done. It's like you can quantify the split and you can quantify the stock options and revenue share and all that, the reasons that a lot of people come. But the thing that I love the most about EXP and our Honey Badger group is that collaboration and the fact that you've got so many killers in that group that are just willing to open up the playbook and jump on a call and do a live video with you and talk about their business, or you're having issues with something that you're trying to work out with your team, or a lead, so like you're on a call with somebody else who's already done it, already figured out the problem. Like you just shorten the learning curve by years. It's crazy.
Yep.
But
super fun.
So the reason I wanted to bring you on today too is, I've heard a couple of your presentations, and I think the one thing that I really wanted to dive deep on is the 100 to 0 principle. And I know you got the shirt on. Prove it, right?
Yep. Got it in there.
And so you guys, I guess you've implemented this in your business with your your kind of specific team there in Cleveland. And I wanted to kind of dive a little bit deeper with that. Like where did you come across that, and kind of how did you end up implementing that, and how's that worked for your business here?
Yeah. So I kind of will probably start with the story of where it came from, because I didn't really develop it. And there's actually there's a few iterations of 100-0 out there. There's a book, and the book kind of goes into a different type of a context of 100-0. But the context that I learned was one day, and it might have been back in 2000, I want to say maybe 11 or 12. Jay sent me a video on YouTube, and anybody can look it up. Just type in John Izzo 100/0 and it'll come up. It's like a 4 or 5 minute video, I think. And really it's a story about where he learned about 100-0. And I'll try to shorten it, but the bottom line was he was at this bank down in southern Georgia called Sonova. Sonova Bank was a small bank, but it was extremely powerful in a sense of that they had lots of loyal clients that were, just generation after generation coming back. They blew away all the other margins of other banks. And so John, being a business type of coach, I suppose, John Izzo, went to interview the president of the bank, and the president of the bank gave him a badge, asked him to walk around and meet the people, meet the employees. And as he walked around, he kept seeing stickers everywhere on people's desks that said 100-0. And, prior to him making this little walk, he said, "What's your secret to this bank?" And the guy looked at him and he said, "It's the power of love." And he said, "Power of love? What are you talking about, the power of love?" He's like, "It's the power of love." And so when he got back from his tour, he went around and met all these people, all the employees that were super happy. Everyone just loved being there. It's kind of like EXP, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. And he loved being there. And John had never experienced anything like this. And he went back to the president of the bank and he goes, you say that this is all about the power of love, but I see 100-0 all over everyone's desks and everyone's all happy. And he says, "Well, I meant tough love." And tough love kind of like reflects on what 100-0 is about, accountability. And it's 100% accountability and 0 excuses is what the 100-0 stands for. In context, it's 100% our responsibility to make sure every client's needs are taken care of, and 0 excuses if it doesn't get done. We don't say, "Well, I would have done it, but my kids were sick home from school or whatever, or right. This and that, or it wasn't my job. It was that person's job." And when you eliminate excuses from your organization, there's something that's really magical that happens. You start to eliminate resentment, because when someone isn't pulling their weight in one direction or another, then the other people will start to resent it, because usually what's going to happen is you're going to elicit an excuse.
Yep.
And so when you allow someone to and I guess I'll go here with it. Nobody's perfect. Everyone messes up.
Right.
And this 100-0 isn't about doing everything perfectly 100% of the time. It just means owning the outcome 100% of the time. And there's a big difference. And so when you give someone the freedom, you've heard the term, it's okay to not be okay all the time.
Right.
When you give someone the freedom to say, all right, the reason, there was a legit reason, I'm just going to own it. You don't need to even hear my excuse. I'm just owning it. It was on me. It won't happen again. And when that's the culture that you're breeding throughout your organization, no matter how big or small, excuse me, it really has a magic effect on your culture. Because now I will say there's a caveat to that. That's if the leaders walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And two, if your people are bought into this. In other words, if they're not bought into this, then they're going to either need to be coached up or coached out. Simple as that.
And that was going to be my next question is how do you get buy-in from that? Obviously, yeah, I exactly what you just said. I was just thinking about that. If I'm not living that, if DJ's not living that, then nobody else is going to, right? Like, so it starts at the top. But how do you create that kind of buy-in with your team? Is that something that you run through that with them? Do you decide as a group, like, hey, this is going to be our mantra, this is going to be our team atmosphere, this is going to be our culture, or is it something that it kind of morphs into something?
So 100-0 started out as just like, so when I saw it, I immediately wanted to add it to our wall of core values. Now I call it the core of our core values. It's like the centerpiece, accountability.
Yep.
And what it was, where it was, no excuses. So my team kind of knew I didn't want to hear excuses. Yep. Well, what I learned was that I was kind of doing it all wrong. And what I mean by that is that we would have like a meeting with my listing team every Monday morning. And we would go through from the week prior, all the listings that they went on, that they ran, that my inside sales team had set up for them. And we would just hold them accountable, right? Like, what happened with this one? What was the outcome on this one? Because we're spending a ridiculous amount of money on these appointments in the ISA team. We needed to hold accountability as to what was going on with it. Did we list it? Is it a nurture or is it dead? We want to know. And so when we go through these, my team would start to get nervous if, they didn't do something they were supposed to do or something that they committed to doing, because what I was doing is I was asking them why. Well, if you didn't follow up on that listing, why? And if you really want to implement 100-0 into your culture, you need to eliminate the word why. I learned this in 2015, which was probably about 3 years too late, but I learned it nonetheless from one of my coaches, John Sheplak. And the reason why you eliminate why is because it's a word of judgment. When you ask somebody why they didn't do something, you're now just eliciting an excuse. Now, meanwhile, you're sitting here touting 100-0, no excuses, but in the next breath, you're asking them to give you an excuse. So that was a huge aha. I can remember the time it was in 2015 in Lake Tahoe, and it was in John Sheplak's mastermind. I was sitting there, and my business partner on a prior company that I started and have since sold, Appointments Today, Matt, his name is Matt too. Matt was sitting right next to me, and my jaw dropped when I heard that one. And I'm like, oh man, I've been really doing this the wrong way. He's like, yeah, me too. And so, but you know what? It's just an awareness now. And so it's part of growth. It's part of the journey. It's being open to being wrong. And all of those things. So
and I think that's part of the process too, as having a team and being a team leader is learning how to lead, right? Like it's not just a given that you're going to do everything right all the time, and the process is never going to be perfect. And if as long as you're improving, I think the team then ends up improving. And I think I have one question too. You mentioned something there, kind of, that I've heard you say, and I've heard Joel say before, and I've kind of thought a lot about it. Is you kind of either coach them up or coach them out, right? And I've also heard, I think from you guys, it's kind of meet them where they're at, as far as where an agent. So if you're growing a team, or you're a team leader, you're a team builder, like, not everybody's going to be on the same level, and to have the same expectations for everybody's probably very unreasonable. So I guess how do you approach, like, because like on our team, we've got a couple agents who are part-time. We know they're part-time, and that's kind of, maybe the goal's only 5 deals a year or 10 deals a year, supplemental income. We've got some that are here hammering expired listings every morning, 5 days a week, they've got super lofty goals. Like, how do you juggle that when you're a team leader and a team builder, like, where you've got people at different levels and different, new agents, experienced agents, you've got part-time, full-time, like, how do you look at that kind of from a team leader aspect?
Well, that was just another, I guess, pivotal moment in my journey of learning. Whereas when I had a small team of, between 8 and 12 agents, I only wanted agents who wanted to perform at a top level. Mm-hmm. And I learned quickly that, you can do that, but plan on keeping it nice and tight and small, because right. The truth of the matter is that's not what everyone's aspirations are, and everyone's goals are different. And it's not when you change from going into a production role of your real estate business, where you have a business, but you really don't. You still have a job, and your business owns you, because if you stop selling, you're not going to be able to make it, and it won't be profitable. If you're in that position still, you can afford to keep your organization nice and tight, and you can even afford to lose somebody, because in generally you're the number one breadwinner for your organization, for your team or brokerage, whatever you're running. The second that you step out of production, it's a whole new ball game. Right. And I don't see anybody sustaining a team or a brokerage of 12 and actually making a good living anyway out of it, because you're going to always be in danger of losing your best person. And the reason you're always in danger of losing your best, highest producing agent is because a lot of times they start getting referred. Let's just say they're good. Right. They may be as good as you. They may be better than you, right? Okay. In different areas of their business. Sure. They be coming up. And what happened when you were in that position and you came up? You either started your own team, started your own brokerage. They could possibly do the same. Mm-hmm. So again, another learning thing is that people are always, it's a great thing to see someone come up from brand new agent to doing 4, 5, 6 million and being like, hey, I want to start my own team. Now, prior to EXP, I'd have been like, oh no, here we go again. I just trained my competition. Yep. Now, if I'm able to coach somebody up through those ranks, there is no more ceiling that they're going to hit, which was at my brokerage. Mm-hmm. Now it's unlimited. I can help them become their own leader and lead leaders. And that's ultimately, I think that's, I may have gotten away from your question because
that's okay. No, I mean that definitely falls right into kind of what we're talking about, because you do have that. That's the biggest fear whenever you're at a traditional brokerage, and even though the last place we're at is like you're fighting that battle up where you've got to make enough off of the broker in order to be profitable if you ever want to step out of that business. And then you're also kind of fighting it down where your top agents are going to want more, and you either got to pay them more where you don't make any money off of it, or they're going to leave ultimately. And so, I think that's always the team struggle, which I think is why everybody that's got a big team, it seems like, is moving to EXP, because it solves that problem. We can help somebody grow out of that and grow their own team. And I guess, and what we were talking about, I guess, prior to that is just like meeting people where they're at. Like you might not have, Like, and how do you kind of structure? How do you coach those guys up on your team? Like, how do you coach somebody differently? How do you coach somebody where they're, they want to come in here and hammer 50 expireds a year, and you've got somebody who's maybe just wants to do their 5 sphere referrals? Like, I guess like 100 to 0 baseline, and there's probably some core principles that you follow, I would assume.
Our number one core principle is commitment. Okay. And so I don't care if you want to do 5 deals or 50, if you're not committed, it's going to be hard to work together with me anyway.
Right.
And it's because if I'm going to commit to something, I'm going to do it. And I expect you to, whether that's, hey, look, I want to sell 5 houses. Okay. So you're going to meet with Joel. We're going to reverse engineer what it's going to look like to sell 5 houses. Okay. And then we're going to spend and invest time and money into some resources to help you reach that. But it's your goal, not ours. All we're there to do is partner with you along the way and as your accountability partner, coach, whatever you want to call it. But and then set micro commitments along the way for you to be able to attain that goal. Now, if you're not willing to commit, but we're investing the time, money, resources into you, but you're not committing, well, it's not going to work. That relationshi's can end up ending. We're going to stop spending the time, resources, and everything. So everything really boils down to commitment. It's not about talent. It's not about more training. We can put checks in all of those boxes. Of course, if you have a super talented person, the training, they're going to catch on fast, and they're going to go to the next level fast than someone who's maybe not as talented but has to work harder. I mean, when it came to sports for me, I was definitely not the most talented person on the field. I had to work harder than everyone else just to either, make the team to start or whatever. I have some talent, but there were some people that were just like night and day, had triple the amount of just raw talent where they're just studs. That was not me. I just had to run faster, work harder, bust my ass harder. And so everyone's going to be at different levels, but I was committed. I was committed when I was a young kid trying to, deliver newspapers to save money to, buy that next bike or whatever I wanted. And when I was 16, it was a car, but I was committed. And so I just want to be around other committed people. You don't have to want to make, $100,000 or $1 million a year to be part of my group and my organization. You just got to be committed. So
that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's great. I guess, that leads me to, I guess, one last question, I guess, before we let you roll here. I know you kind of limited on time, and we want to make sure we honor that block you've got. How do you, let's say you've got somebody that's lacking the commitment. Is that where you kind of, because, I think, everybody's always got somebody that kind of comes to mind with like, man, I know this person could kill it, but they're not showing up when they need to. They're not, like, how do you light a fire under somebody's?
Yeah. So this is a really good question. And if anyone listening has children, this isn't just for real estate agents. This is if you lead any human being. We're not in the real estate business. I mean, that's the byproduct of what we do. But if you're a leader, a broker, a team leader, if you lead human beings, period, you're in the human being, you're in the personal development, human experience business, right? And it's about providing that environment and sustaining the environment for success. And that's really it. And I'm just going to be transparent. I'm not perfect at it. I have 2 teenage boys, 15 and 16 and a half, and I'm having to hold them accountable constantly. And sometimes I screw up. I sometimes ask why when I shouldn't. But to answer your question, whether it's your kids or your agents, and you're holding them accountable the right way, which is to micro commitments. Like, I don't ever say to my kids, like, hey man, you need to get A's and B's. Like at the end of the quarter, I say, what assignments do we need to work out tonight to reach that, and break them into small micro commitments. Okay. Right. And then the question becomes this, when it comes to real estate agents, okay, are you committed? And we do these 100-0 accountability groups where our, about 8 of our agents at a time per group meet. We've had up to 3 or 4 different groups at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Where about eight agents meet in a room, and they physically meet, but you can do this online too, where they all share what their weekly commitment's going to be.
Yep.
And then they hold each other accountable to making sure they're hitting those little micro commitments. Those micro commitments need to be commitments that are leading to the goal, to their personal goals. And so, in coming back, if I'm coaching a real estate agent or my kid or anybody for that matter, and they didn't hit the commitment, they missed an assignment, and that's a biggie. I want to I know I'm bringing my kids into this, but it's just so much the same. Mm-hmm. Kids have assignments in school. You should be giving your agents assignments or little micro commitments when they're coming for you to help. Never give them the answer. Help them think differently, and then give them a small assignment. And so when we talk again next week, this is what I want to see done. I want the wealth chart up, whatever. Now, if they don't get it done, you don't ask them, well, why didn't you do it? You said that you were going to commit, and why didn't you commit? You simply ask them this. Beyond the realm of all that is possible, could you have gotten it done? Could you have nailed the commitment? The answer is yes or no. Now, if the answer is no, maybe something legit did come up. Kid got sick, had to go to the hospital. I mean, there's some legit reasons, right? But could you have done it? And if they say, yeah, I could have, you don't go to why. What you do is you say, okay, would you like to recommit? And if they're willing to recommit, then you got to give them that shot to recommit. Okay, I'm going to hold you accountable. You're going to commit again. Now, you can only do this so many times before you're going to start to see a pattern. Right. And you're going to see a pattern of commitment or someone who's just not committed and they really don't want it. Then you have to start making a decision. Is it worth your time to continue to invest? And this is kind of circling back to coach them up or coach them out, right? Yep. Now, you can't do that with your kids, but you can continue to coach them up, and you don't ever want to give up on your kids, obviously, but that it's the same. It's the same thing, right? And it's that repetitive reminder and accountability to micro commitments, not to goals.
That's awesome. Awesome. That was fantastic, man. I appreciate you coming on today. Those are for me as a team leader, for some people that might not be, hey, they're just trying to figure out how to close their next deal. But I think if you have those core principles and you're following them, no matter what you're doing, I think you're heading in the right direction. Right.
Well, hopefully, people got some kind of foundational principle, out of, our live today. I appreciate you having me on, Matt. I'm happy to do it anytime. In fact, I can't wait to bring, a boot camp or an event to Pittsburgh. I know we were talking about it and we had already done it had COVID not hit, but when this gets lifted, I'm going to be spending some time in Pittsburgh. That's for sure. For sure, man. Yeah, we're excited. And I know, and man, I came up to Cleveland twice last year. The one Chet Black, the 2 hour, and we came and did the boot camp up there. It's I can't wait for everything to come back and be able to do some in-person events again. I'm excited for it, man. It'll be fun, man. I appreciate it. Where can they find you if they want to reach out to you or have any questions or want to get you? Yeah, they could call albie.com is a way you can grab 30 minutes in my calendar, get an unstuck call for 30 minutes. I have a limited amount of time in that calendar, but call my first name, albie.com. Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time, man. Appreciate it, man.